Hey guys, welcome to Tabletop Never Stop. Today we're taking a look at all of the currently released tactics cards for the Lannister faction from Song of Ice and Fire miniatures game. We're looking at the tactics board right now, and just as a reminder, the Lannisters favor the crown position as well as the wealth position. Let's go ahead and jump right in. Intrigue and Subterfuge. When an enemy non-combat unit in CU activates, that unit loses all abilities until the end of the round. And if you control the crown, you also negate any bonuses they would claim from the tactics board. So all the first part of this card does is remove the text from whatever NCU happens to be activating. And then if you have crown, they don't get to claim a bonus from the board either. For the first part to be useful, it really just depends on what enemy NCU is activating. The second part is helpful no matter what. Turning off an enemy NCU is great. You had to have claimed crown with your own NCU and played this card to pull it off. But there are definitely some times where that'll work quite well. Throw enemy plans into disarray. We're going to see a theme here of control on the Lannister tactics cards. So let's move on. A Lannister pays his debts. When a friendly unit is destroyed, one enemy becomes panicked and one enemy becomes vulnerable. You may select the same enemy. If you control wealth, also return one other discarded tactics card to your hand. So passing out panicked and vulnerable are both useful. The trigger on this isn't amazing because you have to lose a unit for you to even be able to play it. I do like the bonus you get from having wealth. Being able to get another tactics card back is great, especially for the Lannisters because they're all about playing tactics cards to mess with the enemy. So if they get cards back, they can continue to do that over and over again. Hear me roar. When an enemy makes a morale test, that enemy suffers -1 to this test and an additional -1 for each destroyed rank in their unit. If you control the crown, they also become panicked. It's interesting that this card gets more effective the more injured the target is. The thing about that is that it makes this card pretty good at finishing off weakened units. But of course, you have to already have a morale test taking place for this card to be used. One thing you can do is claim the crown spot on the tactics board and then play this card right afterwards when the enemy is forced to take a panic test. Now they're getting negative modifiers, and because you control the crown, the enemy is panicked. You can make this even more crazy by using Cersei to claim the crown and attaching her to the unit in question. Now you're stacking a bunch of negative modifiers, and the enemy's panicked. I suspect that'll become a staple of Lannister play, at least in the early stages of the game. Paid Mutiny. When an enemy unit activates, that enemy must pass a morale test or its attachments lose all abilities until the end of the round, and that unit suffers D3 wounds. If you control wealth, they suffer -2 to their roll, and if they fail, they suffer 3 wounds instead of rolling. So a couple things. First of all, although the damage is nice, I think the real bit here is that you can turn off an attachment on an enemy, and it's for the entire round. D3 wounds are kind of just a nice bonus. It comes with an automatic debuff to their morale, but we already talked about ways that you can make this more effective, such as with Cersei. Counterplot. When an opponent plays a tactics card, roll a die. On a 3+, cancel the effect of the tactics card. If you control crown, you may re-roll this die. Alright, so what we have here is another Lannister control card. There are a lot of tactics cards out there that can totally swing a game in one direction or the other. Having the ability to cancel one of those cards is nearly as good as having one of those cards themselves. Of course, you only have a 66% chance of canceling the card, but that's still pretty good. And of course, if you have crown, you have a much higher chance. Also, remember we've already seen a way for Lannisters to get cards back. This is probably a pretty good one to consider picking back up. If you're a Lannister player, you're going to love this card. If you're not, you're going to hate it. That's all I really have to say about it. Fealty to the Crown. When an enemy fails a panic test, for each model removed by this test, restore 1 wound to a friendly infantry unit in short range of that enemy. If you control the crown symbol, you may restore up to 2 additional wounds. For this card to be effective, you need to get an enemy to fail a panic test, but even more so, you need to get them to fail a panic test by a lot. Again, we've talked about ways to make that happen, such as Cersei or Hear Me Roar. That being said, if you manage to get an enemy to totally bomb a panic test, this is just about the best healing in the game. There's no real reason why you couldn't get 6 or 7 wounds off of this card. Wealth of the Rock. When a friendly unit is attacked, after attack dice are rolled, that unit gains +1 to defense saves for this attack. If you control wealth, also automatically block D3 hits. This is just a nice little defensive card. One of the things I really like about it is that you can wait till after the dice are rolled so you have a general idea of how badly you need this card before you even play it, which is nice. It gets even better if you happen to have wealth, which is a nice bonus. Alright, now let's look at the commanders and their tactics cards. First up, we have Gregor Clegane, the Mountain. He's a very straightforward character, but he is able to put a lot of hurt on the enemy. Let's take a look at him. First off, he has Unstoppable Fury. Each time this unit makes a melee attack, it deals D3 wounds. That is quite good. He also has Furious Charge. This unit's charge attacks gain Vicious, which means enemies suffer -2 panic tests caused by this attack. Let's go ahead and look at his tactics cards. Overrun. When a friendly unit destroys an enemy, instead of maneuvering, that unit may pivot and then make a charge action. If this is a House Clegane unit or contains Gregor Clegane, it gains +2 to its charge distance rolled. Okay, so what we have here is basically a free action. When you normally need to destroy a unit, you just get a free maneuver, which can be quite effective for later turns. But in this case, we get a free charge, which means that we could kill a unit and then charge into another unit, which is awesome. The additional +2 charge distance is also nice. It gives you basically of a range to threaten, and also sets you up for potentially making some crazy charge that shouldn't even be possible. I personally don't like making those risky charges, but there are always times where they are useful and may be needed. And Overrun will either allow you to be less susceptible to that risk or allow you to take even bigger gambles and charge even further. Orders to Destroy. When you claim any zone on the tactics board, you may replace that zone's effect with one unit and make one free melee attack action. If it's a House Clegane unit or contains Gregor Clegane, it may make a free charge action instead. Additional actions are always good, and this gives you some versatility. The free charge is even better. Nothing flashy here, but it's just an awesome card. Alright, Fury of the Mountain. When a friendly unit attacks, this attack gains Critical Blow. Rolls a 6, costs 2 hits. If it's a House Clegane unit or contains Gregor Clegane, Critical Blow instead triggers on rolls of 5+. Critical Blow is really good. It's one of the few ways that you can up a unit's damage to the point where it might just delete another unit with one attack. Getting Critical Blow on 5s instead of 6s is even better. Obviously, you want to use this on a unit that's healthy. It goes down in usefulness once a unit's been damaged, but besides that, it's just a card that deals more damage, and it's quite good. We're on to Jaime Lannister. Jaime's also quite good, but in much more of a defensive role and a counterattack role than Gregor. On the card, he has Order Counterattack. After this unit rolls defensive saves, for each hit blocked, the attacker suffers 1 automatic hit. That's pretty punishing. That's enough to make enemies not really want to come at Jaime just right off of that, but he also has some pretty devastating tactics cards. Expert Parry. When a friendly unit is attacked in melee, after attack dice are rolled. For each defensive save roll of 6, block 2 hits. If you control Jaime Lannister, you may also re-roll any defense dice. So this really ups your chance at defense. 6 is blocking 2 hits, kind of like the opposite of Critical Blow, is good, but the real secret here is getting that re-roll on defense dice. Combined, it kind of means you're probably not going to get hit by anything. If Jaime was in a group of Lannister guards that have armor saves of 3+, and he plays this card, there's just not getting any hits through. You're going to stop them all probably. And that's crazy powerful. Deadly Riposte. When a friendly unit is attacked in melee, after attack dice are rolled. For each miss, that enemy suffers 1 automatic hit. If they are attacking a unit containing Jaime Lannister, they suffer +2 additional automatic hit. Unlike the last card, this one can deal damage back to the enemy. What's great about this is because attack dice have already been rolled, you know how many hits you're going to get back on your enemy, which is quite nice. The +2 hits from Jaime Lannister are good, but really what you're looking for is for the enemy to whiff a roll on you, and it doesn't really matter if Jaime's there or not. Also, it's worth noting that this card and Expert Parry have the same trigger when a friendly unit is attacked in melee after attack dice are rolled, so you can't play them both in the same turn. And our last card is Kingslayer's Renown. When an enemy unit activates, that enemy becomes weakened. If they are within short range of Jaime Lannister's unit, they must also make a panic test. So this is a defensive card with the weakened, and interestingly, if you're running a panic list with either Cersei or maybe some mercenary cards supplementing in, forcing a panic test can actually be very deadly for whichever enemy you played this card on. And that's it for Jaime. Next we have the High Sparrow. He is currently the only Lannister non-combat unit. I've talked a lot in some other videos how much I like non-combat units. Cliff notes, it's because NCUs are expensive, and so getting one for free is very helpful. Also, unlike combat commanders, NCUs cannot be destroyed and then removed from the game. He has influence, so once he takes a tactic zone, he's attached to a unit. When the High Sparrow's influence is a unit, you remove one condition token from that unit, and while he's influencing them, they get +2 to their morale test rolls. Currently, most Lannister units aren't that good at morale, so that's helpful. But we'll see when we look at his tactics cards that the High Sparrow is all about morale, and there's actually a unreleased Lannister unit called the Warrior Sons that will likely play quite well with him. So just bear that in mind as we look at these cards, that this is a guide that is designed for a unit that has not been announced yet. Mercy of the Mother. When a friendly unit activates, that unit makes a morale test. On a success, restore up to D6 wounds to that unit. Otherwise, restore up to D3 wounds to that unit. So it's nice you're getting something guaranteed, this D3. The thing about succeeding on this morale test is that you're still rolling a D6, which means that you have a chance of restoring just one wound, which makes me not like that. It's probably intentional because you could make it 2 D3 wounds, but they probably didn't want to make the card too good. Anyway, if you do happen to roll a 6, that's a pretty crazy amount of healing to receive. Protection of the Father. When a friendly unit is attacked, after attack dice are rolled, that unit may make a morale test, and on a success, they only suffer 1 wound for every 2 unblocked hits this attack, and you disregard any remainders. So this is just a nice defensive card. Jaime is stuff that's basically as good without the morale test, but that's what we have here. And finally, Wrath of the Warrior. When a friendly unit activates, it may make a morale test. On a success, it gains Sundering and Vicious. Sundering is -1 to the enemy defense saves, and Vicious is -2 to panic tests. So Sundering is always nice to have access to. There are definitely enemies that will give you huge problems if you don't have Sundering when you're coming at them. So it's a very good card to have access. It's a very good power to have access to, and Panic is also effective at eliminating enemies. So no complaints here. We'll have to see how this guy shakes out in the future. Now we're on the Tyrion Lannister. His attachment card has an order. Superior Strategist. When an opponent plays a tactics card, roll a die. On a 5+, cancel the effects of that tactics card. You can discard a card to re-roll this die, and you may repeat that. This is another way for Lannisters to cancel enemies' tactics cards. 5+ means you only have a 33% chance, but you get to do it once every turn, which is nice, and certainly will make the enemy worried that you'll manage to cancel it whenever they play anything. And then the ability to discard a card to get the reroll is also, although you don't want to get in the habit of just throwing all your cards away, is also really good, because there are times when the whole game will rest on the enemy being able to play one card, some card that's going to let them get set up and deal a buttload of damage to you. So it's worth discarding 1 or maybe even 2 cards to potentially stop that card from going off. So a very powerful commander attachment. And now we're on to his tactics cards. Take a look at them. Cunning Ploy. When a friendly unit activates, instead of this unit performing an action, one previously activated unit may perform one action instead. This unit still gains the activation token. And if you control the tactics part of the tactics board, your opponent may not play tactics cards this turn. So basically, you can activate a unit to allow a unit that's already activated to go again. So that's not a free activation, but it is activation sharing, which of course can be really good. There might be a unit that doesn't have anybody that can really get to this turn, or you might have a unit sitting in the back on objective and it doesn't even need to activate. And of course, you might have a unit that is sitting in somebody's flank and now it gets to attack twice. So that's really good. And turning off your opponent's tactics cards is just a nice bonus. All right, adaptive tactics. At the start of any turn, return 1 discarded tactics card to your hand. If you control tactics, your opponent must also randomly discard 1 tactics card. So we've seen that Tyrion already has some pretty interesting and powerful cards. This one lets you get 1 back and make your opponent discard a card. I think ideally you're going to want to have tactics played so that you can get both effects, but sometimes you just need a card back too. And if that's the case, then then you don't need to have the bonus on this card for it to be effective. Delay orders. When an enemy would activate a combat unit, the enemy must choose a different combat unit to activate if able. And if you control tactics, you may choose the unit that must activate instead. So this is situational but extremely powerful. One of the things about this game is you always know who's going first next turn, so you can set yourself up for a big opening move in the following turn. This card totally throws that out the window. The enemy might have set up a flank and he's getting ready to charge in and just destroy you, and then you can play this card. Now they can't use that unit. And even more hilariously, you can potentially make them activate some other unit, which could also be a problem. So Tyrion's probably one of the more tricksy commanders we've seen to play, but I think his powers can be very devastating for the enemy's plans. And finally, we have Papa Lannister himself, Tywin. His attachment has 2 abilities. Fear of the Lion. When Tywin units activates, one enemy in long range becomes weakened, and he has Lannister Supremacy, which is the same ability that the guards have, Lannister guards. Basically, when he's attacked and this unit passes a panic test, the enemy must also make a panic test, and they get -2 to their roll. Alright, so let's look at his cards. We're going to see it's quite useful that he has the ability to spread weakness with his Fear of the Lion, because he has all his cards trigger off weakness. When an enemy unit attacks, for each attack roll of a 1, the enemy suffers 1 automatic wound. If you expend a weaken token to force the enemy to re-roll, they also suffer +2 additional wounds. So unlike a lot of these cards, we don't look at the dice before we play it. That's because this card is way better than those other ones. So every time they roll a 1, they get an automatic wound, and then if they have a weakened token, and we make them re-roll, which we should because we're looking for 1s, they also suffer +2 additional wounds. Pretty powerful defensive ability. It could damage or destroy a unit that your opponent thinks is going to be around for a while and be a continuing issue for you to deal with. Instead, this card might just wipe them out. Next, we have Lion's Wrath. At the start of a friendly turn, one enemy unit becomes weakened. Until the end of the round, all weakened enemies suffer -1 speed and trigger disorderly charges on a roll of 2 or less. So this is an interesting one because it hands out a weakened token, and then it puts a global debuff on all weakened enemies, which there are several other ways that you could be spreading weakened around. So this might be affecting most of the enemy army. Now its effects aren't amazing. -1 speed is okay. It'll slow them down, but not a huge amount. And disorderly charge on 2s, again, that's not a huge deal. But if you get one, losing your reroll on charges is very devastating. Also, the enemy is already weakened, so that means the amount of damage they're going to be able to do is going to drop a lot. But this is only a so-so card, in my opinion. And finally, we have Lannister Intimidation. At the start of any turn, you may expend a weakened token from an enemy unit. That unit and their attachments lose all abilities this round. So this just turns off a card and its attachment's powers, which, depending on the unit and the attachment, could be very devastating. It's also worth noting that it's not for the turn, it's for the rest of the round, so that's also quite powerful. Okay, and that was all of the Lannister units. Thanks a lot for watching. Go ahead and subscribe to the channel because there's lots more videos coming, and I'll see you around.